Let's do it.
All right, Austin, man, thank you so much for meeting with me this morning. I really appreciate it. Why don't we start by you introducing yourself?
Sure. My name's Austin Zavi. I am the assistant principal at Oakland Unity Middle School.
Perfect. So I just want to dive right into this conversation about tech integration at our school. We've had devices in our classroom for a while now, actually, and both teachers and students, I think, are finding some creative ways to use them. I'm wondering, from your perspective, in what ways have you seen devices enhance teaching and even learning in our school so far?
Yes. I think it's probably like enhanced learning for a longer period of time than teaching. In my opinion, I think we're kind of in like the golden age of it enhancing teaching. But first with learning like differentiation, right? So like if you go in a math classroom, 30 kids can be working on 30 different things at like an appropriate level for them. And then there's 30 different resources for them to engage with if they need additional support. I think another big piece that is kind of overlooked with learning is access, right? Whether that be for just students with different needs, whether that be students with learning differences or um, students with like who speak a language other than English and instruction is in English. So obviously translation is a big part. For some of our students, it's text to speech or speech to text or masking or um, things or like different types of keyboards that they can use, but really just making sure that everybody can access the curriculum. And then on the teaching front, I think like grading, right? Instead of you having to like manage 120 papers, like you're bringing your laptop home, right? And grading from there. I think like we're starting to see AI really meaningfully enhance teaching. And I think like some teachers on our staff are diving into that space a little bit. But just around like giving students feedback, identifying trends in data, um, thinking through some of the planning that happens. And then I think we are feel proud to say we're on the forefront of like being anti-device in some way. We've always been a phone-free school, and I have not seen phones enhance teaching and learning in like a really meaningful way, which is why our students turn their phones in when they come in. Yeah, I don't think you necessarily like. To me, good teaching has always been and will always be good teaching with or without technology. Like that's just technology is just a tool, but there's some powerful ways to leverage it for sure.
Yeah, man, I agree. I want to switch our focus now from like the current impact of tech to like our depth of use. I think sometimes technology can be used as a way to just replace old methods, like typing an essay instead of writing an essay. Um, but I think it can also push students into some deeper thinking and more like meaningful learning. So how do you ensure that devices are being used as tools for deeper learning rather than just like a substitution method?
Yeah, I think that's like a really good question and is often the case. I
Right.
think most of the time it's a replacement. I think it starts with educators thinking through the question like, what is the benefit of a student doing this on a computer? There's like, and if that benefit exists, for sure, do it. But there is like a lot of research around like comprehension and internalization being much deeper when it's on paper, like working in hand versus a computer. Um, and at the same time, like the differentiation piece is so real. So I think the deeper learning can happen through like research. Um, and like, again, our kids are only in middle school. So you can't do like a, hey, like research, um, the Indian removal like act for me, right? Like that's not enough guidance, but thinking through um, ways that we can use technology to put students in different situations or access different information that they wouldn't be able to access otherwise. I think everybody kind of has their own opinion. I don't like necessarily think devices are always the way to go, especially when it's just substitution. It's like, no, we're introducing like a lot of distractions. The kids already spend plenty of time on screens, but so I think it's just like asking that question, like, can this be done on paper? And is that going to like support the students and not make my life too much more difficult? Then like that's probably the move. Um, if it is something that's like a rich experience, there's research. They're going on a virtual field trip. They're watching a video uh, of someone with like a perspective that is very different from them, from like a different part of the world at a different time. Um, I think, or like kids are doing, right? They're applying, they're building something that they can't build on paper. I think those are some good examples, but generally speaking, I think if it can be done on paper, it should be done on paper.
Yeah, and I've been thinking through it as well too. Like, you know, you can't like I can't take 30 kids to view um, the shots at Lexington and Concord, but I can put on a VR experience and
Yeah,
take my entire class there.
yeah.
Um, which I've been thinking through, by the way. But okay, so we covered the depth of use. I'm interested to know a bit about like your future outlook on tech, because it's not really like a legislated space yet. I personally think that's where we're headed, but I think that tech is changing so quickly. Schools are trying to keep track and keep pace. When you think about maybe the next 3 to 5 years, how do you see tech shaping the way students learn and the way teachers teach?
Um, for for teaching, I think it's like the planning and grading, and just like a lot of the kind of non-teacher parts of the job, like the administrative, same way it's impacting like every workforce and industry, supporting with email, supporting with communications, supporting with scheduling, pieces like that for learning. Like there has been adaptive technology around in education for a while, but I see that probably getting a little more widespread. I think um, some people are doing really interesting things with like chatbots as tutors, and having like a student, like here's an example, like student solves a math problem on an iPad, AI like analyzes what they did, tells them what they got wrong, gives them like another problem, right? Like things like that I think are really cool. One potential like unintended consequence of that is like the number one predictive factor of how much a kid learns in a room is their relationship with their teacher. Like if they have a strong relationship with their teacher, they learn lots, and if they don't, they learn less. And I think it'll be really interesting to see people kind of try to strike that balance between how am I like leveraging technology to maximize learning, but also not taking myself out of the equation, or like making it something that uh, is inauthentic or has less joy, um, and like less connection than before. Because I think we've learned that lesson from the pandemic, right? And
100%.
wouldn't want to like go back to that space when we don't have to.
Right. I think me and you were talking very, very recently. You had a chance to actually dive in and create a chat box. You want to just talk real briefly about like what that experience was like?
Yeah, so I think that's like a lot of these like generative AI things that you can create, can be more like closed in the best way possible. Like you can create the framework that it happens in. So um, I have like a lot of institutional knowledge at our school, as do you, about like our school culture, our code of conduct, how things work like that. Um, and I always want to be available to people, but I also don't want them to feel like disempowered or have to, you know, go through this kind of heavy text to figure out what the next step is. So I kind of like fed our restorative values and mindsets, our code of conduct, some of the resources that we use for the restorative work that we do. So I like created this chatbot where it's like draw from these things,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's where the power is when you can create something that is aligned with what you want to do and see, and that could be academically too, right? The thing that I created was like teacher facing, but that could be academic as well. Like really want you like you tell the chatbot like really place an emphasis on 2 to 1 positive to corrective feedback when you're analyzing student writing, right? Or like we're really working on, like I taught the kids these 4 criteria for strong evidence, like use those. So then the kids are hearing it from you. They're putting their paragraph in the chat bot and they're like, oh, these are like the 4 criteria that Mr. Ward talked about.
That
Just so that it's like a really purposeful experience.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. And I actually got a chance to play around with that chat box yesterday, actually, and it's really good. And I put it through a few different situations. I want to briefly talk about student readiness. Um, Beyond the classroom, we know that students need to be ready for life after middle school, and even high school. And I'm wondering, what role do you believe tech plays in preparing our students for college careers, or just even being citizens like out in the world?
Yeah. I think it's a really deep question. There's kind of 2 sides to it. The first one is that like technology is probably the greatest equalizer like in our lifetimes. Our students can like who live in a pretty neglected and historically marginalized community can access the exact same information that the kids in the hills can, right? So I think it's about like preparing students to learn how to use technology. I don't know many careers that don't leverage technology in some way, shape, or form. But I also think it's teaching them how to critique technology, and I think that's like the piece of the citizenship part, right? There's just so much, for lack of better terms, like garbage out there, whether it's fake news or and just kind of having like a discerning eye for things like that. And then I think, and this is like a worry for me as someone who uses AI like a decent amount, like I do see technology shaping or like really playing a big part in preparing our students for the future. I also like don't want them to be technology dependent,
Yep.
right? Where it's like, oh, I don't know how to do some of these foundational skills, but I am great at using a calculator. There are some things that like you just have to know how to do, um, and I don't want to like rob our students of the opportunity to learn those things. Um, and I think about that, like I don't want to. There's some things that like I'm definitely thrown into Claude, and it's like this is making my life easier. But there's also some things where it's like I want to like deeply think through this,
Yeah,
and like maybe that's like a little like anxiety around it, but like I don't want to like lose my ability to critically like think through some things.
for sure.
Um, so I think it's like a really tricky dilemma. Like kids cannot be technology like tech dependent. At the same time, like preparing them to leverage it in ways that empower them and work best for them.
Yeah, there are for sure some quite a few days I have in here where like we're not touching a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just still see the real value in like, your pen hitting the paper and
For
talking
sure.
to the person next to you. So that we can, yeah, create some thoughtful dialogue. But I think that's a great segue into my next question, kind of centered around balance and like best practices. We all know that like tech and innovation is exciting, but the strong teaching practices, I think, what you were alluding to, are like the foundation of how we learn. So, how do you personally balance the push for like new tech with maintaining the solid research-based instructional practices that like we have?
Yeah, I think that it like ultimately comes down to a few things. One, like not like planning or delivering instruction like rooted in convenience, right? Like I can think of like one site or application that I was like super excited when it came out. I thought it was so cool. It's called Diff It, and you're like, hey, like I'm gonna do this lesson on the Monroe Doctrine or whatever, and it gives you slides and like a little reading comprehension piece and a graphic organizer, cause and effect, and you're like, holy crap, like it's cool that it gave this to me. And then like you look at it and it does create that, but like, is it grade level? And are like the tasks it's asking kids to do grade level, right? Like, are the kids maybe just learning like, are they answering recall questions versus like critical thinking questions and like higher order thinking questions? Probably. Um, so I think like the non-negotiable is like high quality um, curriculum and high quality practice. And that starts with like it being vetted and like research backed.
Yeah.
So and like people being okay with that. Like I have strengths, but like people who's like organizations who devote their entire existence towards like creating really high quality instructional material are gonna just do a better job than me, and that's okay. So I think using the innovation and like using the change while like having some non-negotiables is kind of like the way to go.
Okay. Yeah, approaching my last question. And this one is centered around your dream vision. Um, let's imagine within education, there are no budget restraints, okay? Anything is possible. What would your dream vision be for student devices and tech? What would that look like?
I don't think we're too far off from it at our school.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, we're 1-to-1. I think like unlimited budget, probably the very first thing I would do would be like get a hotspot for every single kid at our school to have at home, so them and their family can access the internet at home. It is 2025, and many of our students do not have access, and their families don't have access to internet when they get home. And I think that's like kind of an unspoken divide, if you will, like the access to internet.
Yep.
Um, I think maybe like the kids get right now we have Chromebooks. Maybe the kids get like MacBooks if money isn't a thing.
Not a thing.
And just for like an opportunity to, again, kind of to one of your earlier questions, like the kids can do things on the Chromebooks, but like what opportunities can they explore on the MacBook where it's like, okay, now I'm like messing around in Adobe, and like now I'm doing exploring my interests in uh web applications, content creation,
Coding.
video, film, like
Yeah.
all these new forms of media, um, music production. Like the list goes on and on. And I think that would be really cool. I think the last thing would probably be like a kind of like a materials library, right? Where it's like maybe not like not every kid getting like meta glasses, but maybe there's like a class set,
Yeah.
and then the history teacher checks them out for the VR field trip, or like a kid is trying to create a movie from the meta glasses, or trying to create doing an advisory lesson on empathy, and it's like, hey, here's like a walk in my shoes. So I don't think it's like universal, everybody has everything all the time, but I do think um like people just having the opportunity to explore some of those things.
Yeah, and I mean to your earlier point, I've been diving into some of the data specifically for East Oakland, and it showed before the pandemic only 25 or 21% of students had access to the internet at home, and even 5 years post COVID, that number is only 50%. That still seems very low to me. And so then I dove even
I would guess it's 95, 99%,
right.
like in a different zip code still in the
For
county.
sure. And then even with like groups like Oakland Undivided, I believe, they got out 50,000 laptops. And so like on paper that sounds great, but then I dove even deeper um into the rabbit hole, and then I discovered that even with that hardware out, students were only accessing the internet at 15 megabytes per second. But if you go to a different zip code, they're working at 100. So even with
Sure.
the hardware out, the access is still, you can't even download your slides. Uh,
Right.
so we still see a divide there. I didn't want to take too much of your time, man. Austin, I really appreciate all your insights, man. This has been actually really helpful about where we are, where our school kind of wants to go with tech. But before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share about the role of tech in education that we didn't touch on? Um, yeah, I'll just leave it there. I'll leave it open for you, man.
Um, no, I mean, I think the questions are pretty well structured in a way that allowed me to get my opinions out. I think like for educators not being afraid to explore and try. Um, and like I would say at our school, our culture is very strong. So like if a teacher's like, hey, like we're gonna give this a shot and it might not work. The kids play ball, and I would like um encourage people to try things, because even if it's not gonna work, you're gonna get something from it. And realize like, hey, that's not it, but what I can continue to look for, figuring out what those things are. So just messing around with it, trial by error, and being aware that it's not all going to work.
All right, man. I appreciate you so much, man. I hope you have a
Always.
fantastic rest of your day, man.
Same to you, man.
All right, that's it, man. That is it.
Hope that helps.
It definitely did, man. All right, let's check the docket, see what we got up for today.
All right, man. I'll catch you later.
I appreciate you.